Hey,
Ash,
class.
would you like to share with the class what you have presented?
Yes, Mr. Patrick. Today, I have here a video I found on Twitter last night.
Ooh, all the best videos come from Twitter. All right, well, here it is. This is Edgeworth runs a dog race.
Yes.
Is this what we're watching right now?
Correct.
Here we go.
Gabby just can't wait to go.
Look at him dive! Oh no! She's just... Oh my gosh, the sound! He's just waiting at me.
He does like barrel rolls. It's incredible.
This way. Oh wow, look at that dive bomb. Oh, that one he did like a pike
Real
jump.
fast.
Oh, let him go through. This is incredible. Oh, look at him go! Back and forth, back and forth. Oh, wow. Wow.
I was croaking at this thing last night. It was so bad.
That was so much funnier than I expected it to be.
Right?
What is it about Ace Attorney fans that make them such a special breed?
Right.
Literally.
Well, this was unexpected. Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory. The show that shamelessly parodies the show the same name because the former host and YouTube legend reacted to your dumb meme video. So July has certainly been a wild month for me to say the least. They announced that the investigation report will be coming in September, and then the lead character designer of that game found my Edgeworth video, which somehow ended up on the Japanese news. And insanely, the most surprising of them all, MatPat, yes, the Sans' Nest guy, would sit down and not only watch, but laugh hysterically at that same Edgeworth running video.
Right? I won the editing talent. Top notch.
Right? Editing. That is a hard video to put together, actually, because you have presumably rotoscoped out the dog the entire way.
Yes.
Which is intense.
And yes, Matt, the rotoscoping did take forever. A solid year and a sore wrist, in fact. But with MatPat hanging up the jacket, leaving only one Ace Attorney theory as his legacy, I've decided that I will take up the mantle to bring the community one more Ace Attorney game theory. This one I'm guaranteeing will be even more whack than MatPat's. And I think I can pull off a good MatPat, just instead of Diet Coke, it's Baja Blast. But the question is, what theory should I even talk about? Godot could see red on white, the bite of 17, Maya is Susie. Oh, so many good choices. Yet after much deliberation, there's been one theory I've sat on for a while that would be an interesting topic to explore. That during the events of Bridge to the Turnabout, Phoenix Wright actually died. Yes, I know the guy can defeat Galactus by throwing paper at him, and a man we all consider to be invincible, the dude whose literal name is Phoenix, he is actually dead. It sounds absolutely improbable, yet like the Dark Phoenix saga, a phoenix can always get their wings clipped. I think that's what happened, I haven't read a comic. But in case you didn't know, let me catch you up to speed. In the final case of the third game, Bridge to the Turnabout, Phoenix is faced with, well, a bridge that's on fire. You see, Phoenix was awoken in the middle of the night that a murder has happened and runs to call the police. But as he bolts to the telephone, he sees that the bridge is lit ablaze. And moreover, he knows that Maya is training just across the chasm and that maybe the murderer fled across the bridge before he was burnt. So in a panic, Phoenix sprints across the flaming bridge. However, as Phoenix is running across, the burning bridge snaps, and Phoenix plummets 40 to 60 some feet into the freezing cold river below. Yet somehow, despite the fall, Phoenix emerges from it basically unscathed, only catching a couple bruises in the strong cold. And fast forward through the entire case, Phoenix returns behind the bench, does a simple exorcism, pins the murderer on the coffee addict with a Cyclops mask, and we win the case. Yippee! And speaking of masks, this video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. Whether it's because of 70 cups of coffee or preparing for a same-day trial, sleep is hard to come by. I would know as a video editor and full-time college student. Which sucks, as sleep is essential for living a better, healthier, more awake life. Which is where Manta Sleep comes in. Their sleep masks use premium materials that offer a soft and cozy feel to help relax your eyes for a well-deserved rest. They're completely adjustable for your liking and offer total blackout once wearing, as if you're Godot trying to see red on white. Seriously, I can't see anything in these.
Oh, shit.
And if you enjoy listening to a podcast while you sleep, or have noisy neighbors or are in a loud environment, then they have the Manta Sound Sleep Mask. With completely adjustable razor-thin speakers and 20 hours of battery life while still retaining all the previous stellar qualities, it creates a perfectly cool, relaxing, and solitary environment for the best sleep of your life. I've worn this mask for a week, and it's honestly been some of the best sleep I've gotten all year. I genuinely love these masks, and I love Manta Sleep's mission of creating a pro-nap, anti-hustle culture environment, something I myself need to learn from. Our bodies are made to rest and refresh instead of working to the bone, and getting that sleep allows you to do more. Trust me, a good nap works wonders over 5 energy drinks and a cup of hot coffees thrown at your face. So if that message resonates with you, or you simply want to get better sleep, then click on the tag products or access the link in the description and use my code COOLCARGUY for 10% off your next order. Once again, thank you Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. But let's rewind to Phoenix's fall, because this feat always felt odd. Like, it feels extremely improbable that Phoenix just walked away scot-free. Unlike in movies or games where falling into water regardless of height would break your fall, the surface tension of water was still hurt a lot when falling from extreme heights. It's certainly not in the range that will kill instantly, as their world record for high diving is 192 feet. Heck, people have fallen from similar heights and survived, but others not so much. Not to mention that Eagle River has violent rapids that were apparently infamous in washing away many bodies to be never seen again, as well as for its freezing cold temperatures. Also, not gonna lie, but this doesn't look like 60 feet. It looks way higher than that. To put in perspective, the average baseball player can throw a ball 60 feet in 1.4 seconds. It's a long distance, but it's not nearly chasm height. So while it's absolutely possible Phoenix could have survived the fall, it seems extremely unlikely that he survived while fighting through the blistering cold and aggressive rapids. So what if Phoenix did somehow die from the fall? Or rather him falling into a coma that he's yet to wake from, and the events following the incident have been a prolonged imagination from within the coma or beyond the grave. Well, there may be a little bit of merit behind these conclusions. A lot of psychologists theorize that people do dream when in a coma, and in a lot of fictional media, like say a game with prosecutors with whips and swords and cyclops goggles in a courtroom, it's repeatedly shown as gospel. That in a state nearing or post-death, we can experience these extremely vivid visions and dreams we can loosely control and explore. And a lot of people in real life testify that they could actively participate in these dreams, almost like an entirely new world made within someone's mind. But this speculative outcome would actually explain a lot, because following his accident, a lot of the events would become increasingly inexplicable. Obviously, this is a series of spear, medium, summoning people for the dead, and Von Karma shenanigans, but Ace has been able to keep things relatively grounded. But immediately following Phoenix's accident, things start to fall off the rails. Like, following the fall, we have Phoenix's evil ex being somehow related to Maya and now returning from the dead to kill her, swinging bodies off burning bridges, and Godot revealed to be the true murderer staring us in the face the entire time. Also fancies Edgeworth saving him, but we don't have to talk about that. Now, in context of the entire case of trilogy, it does make sense. But up to this point, this has been the most insane and fantastical the series has gotten. And it only escalates from here, as almost immediately afterwards, Phoenix would get disbarred and instead become a shady, undefeated poker player for the next 7 years. But most notably, Phoenix becomes a father to a superpowered daughter magician. A daughter of which is by some means related to an inspiring lawyer named Apollo Justice, who just happens to be working for his good friend Christoph Gavin. And yes, Apollo too has superpowers. And then, Phoenix just goes screw it and recruits yet another superpowered lawyer, Athena Sykes, and just makes her write anything agency the Avengers of Lawyers. I know this is the franchise that can summon souls from the dead and has literal ghost murderers, but I draw the line at super sight and hearing. Now that's just way too absurd. And that doesn't even include Phoenix creating an entirely new system of trial despite being disbarred, courtroom bombing, space terrorism conspiracies, exposing international spies, and even igniting a revolution and disassembly of a foreign monarchy. All from a lowly defense attorney who can barely pay rent. As talented of a lawyer and detective Phoenix is, and as much as I love Secret Agent Hobo Phoenix, there's only so high a stakes Phoenix can experience in a 3-year period till it feels just outlandishly impossible. But as ludicrous as all of these events sound, is there really any merit to suggest that the events of the future games are merely conceptions of a dead man? Well, in short, not really. However, there's still a sizable amount of circumstantial evidence that may allude to that idea. Firstly, Phoenix continues to demonstrate insane feats of survivability or luck, most notably in Turnabout Cornered, where he gets hit directly by a car that flung him 30 feet into a telephone pole, only to once again walk away with just a sprained ankle. Hyperbole or not, Phoenix still got hit by a car. That has to hurt. But the most peculiar thing to me is Phoenix's sudden back pain, to the extent that he passes out from the pain once from doing yoga of all things. Something that was completely non-existent when he was younger. And I know it's probably due to him getting older and the "oh, I'm an old millennial with back problems" joke. But that severe back problems at 35 seems a bit odd. But could it be, and this is absolutely a massive stretch, but could it be that the tumble into the river severely hampered his back? And in this coma/limbo state Phoenix is in, he could still feel the pain of the injury from that event. People in comas have recounted that their physical and auditory senses would invade and incorporate into their dreams. Like if people were talking in the room, or if they changed positions in the bed or had feeding tubes put in, some variation would be transmitted into their thoughts. So something like Phoenix passing out because of his back pain could rather be indicative of the back pain he has experienced. Or even more darkly, possibly him actually dying for a second before regaining consciousness and just blaming it on his back pain in his dream. Now, I don't have any reason to think that to be true, but it's an interesting possibility to keep in mind. Secondly, we have the dilemma of Apollo justice. Stick with me, right? It's become a running joke that Apollo has many backstories. He went from an orphan with supervision to having a never before mentioned best friend who gets murdered in a space shuttle terrorist attack, to being the adopted son of a foreign revolutionary after his father died overseas and mother abandoned him thinking he died. These are 3 distinct childhoods, and while you could try and forcibly piece all of these together, there's still a lot of plot holes and conveniences. And it's definitely not as simple as got bullied in middle school. But you know what doesn't have consistent storytelling? Dreams, illusions, fantasies? Yes, I'm implying that Apollo is the figment of Phoenix's imagination as his soul slips between life and death. Maybe Apollo is a reflection of how Phoenix perceives himself, and him actively shaping and molding Apollo into who he wishes he could be. A lot of people have said that Apollo does feel awfully similar to Phoenix, though I personally never saw the connection. But it would explain why Apollo is so interconnected with so much of the narrative beats. Think of Apollo as Phoenix's OC, who Phoenix apparently loves tormenting in his wicked imagination. And looking back, there are even more inconsistencies that just don't add up. Like how Troop Grand Rig were apparently the biggest and greatest magicians in the world for years, yet Max Galactica would win that title at the Magician's Grand Prix. Or how Zack would be pronounced legally deceased after just 7 years, yet Mystic Faye was missing for 17 and was still not considered legally dead. It's those small little inconsistencies that pile up, suggesting that maybe there has been some fabrication, or do I say bluffery, of some of this reality's lore. I know this all seems extremely far-fetched, and it is. And really, this theory is all one convoluted version of a dream theory, which I know we all hate. But there are a lot of implications if this were to be true. Like, why has Mia never shown up or even mentioned falling trials and tribulations despite Pearls and Maya being actively present? Maybe it's because Phoenix himself is already a spirit, and he can't really communicate with Mia through a weird spirit invading a spirit's imagination or some ghost mumbo jumbo I don't know about. Or how anything regarding Phoenix's ancestor Ryunosuke or the fantastical inventions of Herlock Sholmes failed to be mentioned or translated into the original trilogy, where people are still using flip phones. But this theory also allows for the opportunity for Phoenix to answer unanswered questions, or resolve personal points of trauma, mainly in trials and tribulations with the existence of Godot and Dahlia, because he only gets answers to these things plaguing his mind after his tumble into the river. So he instead ties all elements between Mia, Dahlia, and Godot to give himself some kind of explanation. A reason as to why Godot despises him, how he was able to be tricked into being manipulated by his ex, or how Dahlia seemingly got freed from captivity. So he created this elaborate story, all connecting them to the bridge that he fell to his demise, to give himself some kind of closure. Also, Edgeworth's there too. And if this dream theory is true, it could feasibly allow something like his Professor Layton collab to actually be canon, at least in this wonky timeline amalgamation. Like as outlandish as an England trip resulting in a trip to Labyrinthia and crossing paths with Layton, with how insane this series goes, this misadventure could just feel like another Tuesday for Phoenix. And without getting into a possible asymmetry multiverse, which I don't even want to think about for my small feeble brain, the simplest explanation that makes total sense is that between trials and tribulations and his disbarment, Phoenix just got transported into a fantasy land in his misadventures. Nothing major really. And it's interesting to note that the original trilogy is referenced constantly, even in the seemingly non-canon game. Even the most disconnected of media like Marvel vs. Capcom, they're filled with references to the original trilogy, including several Edgeworth cameos, yet no mention of Apollo Justice or beyond. Maybe it's because the original trilogy is the most recognizable and popular, or that these games were made and released before Dual Destinies, or it's because Phoenix's injury and comatose state damages his memory recall abilities, affecting what he can remember and thus what he can incorporate into his lucid dream. Like, throughout even the Apollo trilogy, major events from those games are never brought back up. Yet, there are constant allusions to the good old Phoenix trilogy, from stepladders to cross-examining parrots. Like, you remember that, but not you manufacturing entirely new sets of a trial just to become the ultimate hater? Maybe it's something that they just don't bring up. Or maybe it's because, like how we rarely remember our own dreams, he simply can't easily recall those details besides the major figures he's imagined like Apollo, Athena, Trucy, etc. And why it's so hard for him to remember a consistent backstory for Apollo, or why he probably forgot to tell Apollo that him and Trucy are siblings. All these just seem like a minor memory that is, at most, foggy to remember. So, am I suggesting that Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is canon to the Ace Attorney universe and Phoenix actually took Galactus to court? Well, yes. And off topic, but I kinda like this implication because it means that no matter what, Phoenix continues to remember, recall, and incorporate Edgeworth into everything he does. Whether it's teaming up in Kurain or facing off in Labyrinthia or embracing each other in the presence of She-Hulk, they always manage to stick together like the toxic yaoi they are. And speaking of Edgeworth, I do believe that the investigation's duology is actually grounded in the real world, and not just Phoenix's dead visions. The events of the cases are way more grounded in reality. Sure, they still get absurd at times, but nothing too outlandish compared to blowing up courtrooms, a monarchy run by spirit mediums, or superpowered lawyers. Instead, just a good old-fashioned international conspiracies, legal corruption, and logic. But you may be asking, hey car guy, Phoenix literally shows up in the background multiple times, so what gives? Well, yes, Phoenix is literally right there. But don't you find it odd that despite them being best friends, neither Edgeworth or Phoenix, Maya, and Pearls acknowledge each other? Like, I kinda get Phoenix and Edgeworth cause they're edgy like that, but I feel Maya or Pearls would be way more obnoxious about it. Seems already strange. Not to mention that despite Phoenix doing so much for him, Edgeworth only refers to him as him, that man, or a certain defense attorney. Weird, right? But I actually have an explanation for all of this, and it's a lot darker than you may think. Because what I believe is that all of these little background cameos of Phoenix chilling with Maya and Pearl are all a facade. They aren't real. Because in reality, Phoenix is already dead. And throughout investigations, Edgeworth finds himself lost and grief-stricken following the passing or vegetative state of Phoenix just a month prior. So much so that he even struggles to mention Phoenix by name, always reflecting upon all the good Phoenix did, the massive impact Phoenix left on him and his heart. But now, following Phoenix's and maybe even Maya and Pearl's passing depending on the outcome, has left Edgeworth with an empty hole in his soul, owing with fading visions of his old friend haunting his mind. A mirage like a lush oasis in the middle of a dreary desert that Edgeworth can never reach. But despite how elaborate this theory gets, is there really any indication of proof behind any of this? Or rather than being the figmentations of Phoenix's mind, it's just a crazy story from the mind of an unhinged Ace Attorney fan? Well, as much as I want to continue entertaining this wild theory, there are plenty of faults. Things like Troop Grand Marie and the Gavinier still exist in the real world, as shown in investigations, suggesting that Phoenix couldn't have just conceptualized people like the Grand Maries or Clavier from his own mind. And despite being oddly rare and vague, I would be lying to say that there aren't any references back to the games within the Apollo trilogy, implying that he still has some strong levels of recall. And I can't really explain how Edgeworth managed to cross over with Among Us, unless Phoenix really loved playing Among Us with Edgeworth or something. And overall, with Phoenix surviving the fall not entirely being out of the question, especially if we take their word that this is 40 feet, plus already establishing extraordinary things existing in this world, these large leaps in reality can just be entirely canon with how the Ace Attorney universe operates. So is there really any precedent that Phoenix is actually dead? Well, long story short, there is simply no evidence to conclusively render a verdict. And like in any good court of law, evidence is everything. And the more elaborate I continue to develop this case, the more abundant the holes in it become. But as someone who doesn't make these types of theories, this has been a fascinating rabbit hole to explore, especially with me just attempting to level of bluffery as a certain defense attorney. At some point, we all must accept that Phoenix Wright is simply an all-powerful deity with incomprehensible logic and reasoning behind our naive minds. Power with invulnerability that is otherworldly, chronokinesis can make even the mightiest of foes bend to his will, and if struck down, has the vigor to once again rise from the ashes. But hey, that's just a theory. A game! Attorney theory. Case closed.